Welcome back. In this video, I explain what is motivating your friends, your families, your crazy neighbor who bought up all the toilet paper and the sanitize, all that stuff. I explain it all. I know you bought some too. So stay tuned. This is Spiritual Actualization. I'm Rucker. I've got my green tea. Let's get into this. Everyone is motivated by something. Everyone has a level of consciousness that frames their actions, their desires, their motivations. Everyone is at a level of awareness that creates their reality. You see, we are all doing the same things, but we're doing these same things for different reasons. With the current COVID-19 scare and the pandemic and the concerns about being quarantined and the shutdown of the nation, all of these things, right? Well, people respond differently. Understand, anytime survival is threatened, the level of consciousness regresses. It goes back to primal, instinctive ways because survival is literally encoded in our DNA. And so these earth suits that we wear drive us to behave in such a way that they're preserved. Now, as you expand your consciousness and when your vibration is elevated and raised, then you begin to operate in a way that overrules these carnal desires. But understand, you probably aren't there. And if you think you are, we're going to have a little one-on-one conversation because, baby, you're not. And I say that in love. I say that I love you. But I'm also very serious because understand that unless you've truly reached like God consciousness, you're still going to be driven by these motivations of survival. So food and shelter. If you don't have food and shelter, then you're going to operate a bit differently than if you do. And recognize that where you were born, when you were born, who you were born to, all of that impacts and influences how you perceive the world. And it also determines from a very young age the things that you do and how you do them and why you do them. So understand that lower levels of consciousness are really geared towards simply surviving. And those that are truly at higher levels of consciousness don't look down on those at lower levels because we recognize we need to integrate the values of all consciousness in order to truly actualize ourselves in the universe, in the world, in this place and time. So we're going to be talking about spiral dynamics for the next several weeks, and I'm going to do some deep dives into some of the stages, potentially. We'll see. Well, it depends on what you guys comment. So go ahead right now and like this video and leave me a comment. Let me know, have you ever heard of spiral dynamics? If so, what are your thoughts? So this spiral dynamics is really a way of understanding motivations of people, why they operate the way they do. It's bigger than just a personality assessment. It really is a model for really human behavior. And the initial stage is stage beige. We probably won't deal with that because that's very instinctive, and most of all humanity is past that. And I don't think we'll ever regress quite there unless like we get hit by a meteor. Like that'd be about the only thing. And that would be like an infant. They're in that instinctual, I don't know, somebody let me know what word I'm supposed to use. But they're in that I'm just operating out of base instinct. No reason, no rationale. This is just what I know I'm programmed to do. Then you get up to stage purple, and that's the tribal stage. So that's where magic comes from. That's where you begin to have this understanding that, you know what, in order to survive, I need other people. And if we bond together, we'll have a better chance at survival. From there, you go to stage red, and that's when it returns to all about you, baby. So the stages do go between being very individual-centered and being very society or collectivist-centered. So again, stage beige would be individual. Stage purple would be collective. Stage red would be individual. Then you go to stage blue, which is, again, the collective or the society. And it goes on and on. Stage orange, stage green, stage yellow, stage turquoise. So it's a whole model. We'll deal with each one individually because it's a lot. And I wouldn't want to overwhelm you in the initial just welcome to the party video. So the way that I'm going to kind of share this initially is through talking about political figures. because we have some really good example of very prominent politicians who fit in the center of pretty much each of the stages we'll deal with. So we'll deal with stage red and name someone. We'll deal with stage blue and name someone. We'll deal with stage orange, and you get the pattern. I don't have to do every stage. But understand that when we're looking at this, it's bigger than just trying to peg them as, oh, I know what stage they're in. It's also about understanding where you fall and understanding what truly motivates you and where your values are. As you become enlightened, your values do change. And as you go up the scale of consciousness, you do perceive the world in a different way. And understand that most people at lower levels will put themselves at a higher level. So just be aware of that. And as you're hearing the different qualities of each stage, understand, you're probably like, yay for the ones you like. And then be like, oh, but that's not me for the ones you don't like. And that's just human nature. And again, it's kind of like that Dunning-Kruger thing. The less that you know, the more you think you know. And the more that you know, the lower you think your skill set is. It's just the weirdest thing, but it's how we are. So stay tuned to the series. Now, I do want to deal with values for a bit, because values really stretch across the continuum. They are something that's fairly universal. But what values are prioritized, that's different by stage, and that's different by level of consciousness, and it's different by individual. So what is it that you value? Well, again, it's going to depend on how you were raised. If you were raised with food insecurity and violence and things of that nature, then safety is probably going to be very, very high on your list of values. However, if you were in a household that encouraged you to try new things and that introduced you to the arts and things of that nature, then you'll value self-expression. That'll be the thing that drives you, that motivates you, because you didn't have to deal with what is it like to not have food, to not have my basic needs met. In previous videos, we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy and how my assertion is that we have a new base level. As a species, we don't have those survival needs anymore. We don't have, the lower two basic realms. We've met those. Those are pretty universal. But we're now trying to get higher, and we're really centered in that belonging. And then that's the basic, and then it goes up from there. But what if we were able to do something like give everyone a universal income? Everyone had a certain amount of money every month they could draw from, no matter what. What if we just got everybody utilities like lights and gas and water and internet? What if everyone just had access to that, and everyone had housing, and everyone had food, and all of the basic needs were just met? Then what would matter to us? Well, that's what's going to be kind of highlighted in the different stages. And that's going to tell you where your values are. Because if what I just said completely freaks you out, you're like, oh no, that's socialism, we can't have that. It's because there's still that lack mentality that says, oh my goodness, things can't be that way because there's not enough. I remember having the lights cut off. I remember not being in control. And so what happens when you grow up in a unsafe space, especially, as a child, that's tough. That shapes who you are for your entire life, unless you do some really deep work. But if that's how you grow up, then you don't have confidence in the ability of this to actually be real and be reliable and trustworthy, because you feel as though you've lost control. And maintaining a measure of control is one of your core values. You see how this all comes together? So it's going to be a good ride. I encourage you to stay with me. Now, the last piece of this before we move on to the next in the video series is just understanding your neighbors, understanding your friends, understanding your family. Why did everyone buy up toilet paper and sanitizer? Why did they take all the food? It's a reaction. It's a survival instinct that's been activated. When trauma comes, people don't think with their reasoning brain. They think with their surviving brain. We all respond to trauma in one or multiple of these following 4 ways. We can freeze, we can fight, we can flight, or we can submit. Those are kind of one of the things that we're going to do, or some of the things that we'll do. We may freeze and be, I'm just not going to move. You've seen the play dead animals, right? That's the freeze one. But that freeze could then go to, oh, I'm going to freeze. I'll do whatever you like. Kind of, and that's that submit piece. So understand it can be multiple reactions, but typically there's an initial, and it's going to be one of those 4. And that's what we're experiencing right now. Right now we're seeing a lot of fight, which is let me go get what I can get. Some people are going into debt to buy toilet paper. Like, that's not good, right? And they probably had enough at home to last their family for a couple weeks. But the thought of not having enough, I remember when I was 4 years old and I came home and there was no food. I remember when I was 6 years old and I came home and the lights were off. I remember when there was a ration. You know, all of these different things factor in. And when they're embedded, particularly again at a young age, they really do shape how we respond. And even if you didn't experience that, there's that group mentality, that group think, that herd mentality, that follow mentality, which is this is what people are doing, I need to do it too. And yeah, I've got 30 rolls of toilet paper, but I might need 4 more or 60 more or 100 more. I've seen people literally buying hundreds of rolls. That's why I say that. And you've probably seen it too if you've had the news on at all or you've been on social media. So, but I don't want you to judge these people. And if you're those people, I am those people. If you're that person, don't feel bad. It's a very natural response. And it's something that the reason this channel even exists is so that we can all rise and get to a level where we don't have to respond that way, where everyone simply has enough. Truth be told, if we weren't living paycheck to paycheck, if we could afford a $1,000 emergency, if we did have guaranteed income coming in every month where our basic needs were met, do you think anyone would really be freaking out? There'd still be a few, right? But in general, the level of panic would be much, much lower because we're used to having our needs met. We would say, you know what, I can trust these people because my needs are met. I can extend faith in these institutions because I'm operating from a very reasoned, rational place. And the other part of this is if you've been tricked before, if you've been stolen from, you grew up in a neighborhood where people stole and there was crime and fights broke out all the time and just a bad place, right? If you grew up in that kind of setting, then you don't trust authority because authority to you is only throwing folks in jail, your friends, your brothers, your cousins, you. Like, it really matters your background. That drives your motivation and your values. So understand that people are just doing the best they can with where they are in life. And it is our goal with this channel to raise the consciousness of humanity to a place where it's not even a second thought. You need, I'm going to make sure you have. Healthcare, of course, everyone deserves healthcare. Like it's just basic. It's the same as going to school in kindergarten and first grade. Of course, everyone deserves college. Yeah, like everyone should go to college. The more educated people are, the better it is for all of us. Like when we get our consciousness to that place where we recognize that we're not as individualistic as we think we are, it is in that time and space that a pandemic won't become a panic. You don't have to panic with a pandemic. An emergency doesn't have to become a crisis, like all of these things. So I hope that you got something from this video of value. I hope that at least gives you a good lead into what we'll be talking about. We'll have some really interesting content. So I hope that you subscribe to this channel. Hope that you hit the notification bell already, but if you haven't, go ahead and do that now so that you can be notified when these videos post. Again, go ahead, hit the like button. Got to do it for YouTube. They make me say it. They make me do it, all these things. And you got to suffer too. If I got to say like, you got to do the like. No, I'm just kidding. But I appreciate the likes and it does matter to me. I do appreciate seeing, that this was valuable. And that's just one way you can say, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time to make the video. I appreciate what you're sharing with me. And even if you don't agree or don't quite understand what I'm saying, that's fine too. Leave me a comment, ask questions, and still hit the like button. So I thank you so much for listening. As I always say, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. I love you. I'll see you in the next video.